But in the meantime, I want to go ahead and give each candidate some time, and I think they won't be as long-winded as I am, because we do want to get to questions, but thank you very much for attending.
Thank you very much. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Paul for bringing us all together and for also including the Green Party. The Green Party, whose 4 pillars include peace, social justice, ecological wisdom, and grassroots democracy.
Dr. Paul, thanks for joining us. And let me start first with this. Why are you the only Republican defending Michael Steele?
He did not deserve to be punished through the media in the sense that, get out, we don't want you, we don't need you. I think the party's doing reasonably well.
Have called on Steele to step down, like Liz Cheney and Weekly Standard editor Bill Kristol. But you won't hear Texas Congressman Ron Paul joining that drumbeat. He is coming out in support of Steele's comments, and he is joining us live via Skype. Happy 4th of July to you, Congressman. And before we misconstrue anything, you are coming out in support of these comments, right?
Well, not in the entirety, but I came out in support of Chairman Steele because I think it was overkill. He made a casual comment. He wasn't setting policy, and all of a sudden people jump on him like we're not allowed to have a discussion. As a matter of fact, I did like what he said, so I enjoyed the fact that we're willing to have a discussion about the popularity of this war. And truly, it is Obama's war, even though it was started during the last administration. Obama said this is the good war, and he's expanding the war, and the American people aren't with him. The majority of the American people are tired of the war, and they'd like to see it ended. They'd like to see our troops come home. I mean, this idea that as soon as somebody has a discussion, even if it's an offhanded discussion, people are clamoring for him to resign.
Congressman,
I don't think that's quite fair.
If you were not feeling, if conservatives weren't feeling so positive about what might happen in November, do you think, would even you be calling for Michael Steele to resign? Do you think the drumbeat would be even louder?
I have no idea. I can't interpret it for them, but all I know is for them calling for him to resign means that they don't think about November. That was one of my points in my statement. Okay. Why do this now? Why call for a resignation when the Republicans are doing well and it looks like they're going to have victory? Why do they want to divide us now and say, oh, let's have a big fight over Michael Steele? That's not good for the party.
Task be going through there and checking on 65,000 people and what their personal beliefs are? It's impossible. I got their money away from them. So it's a plus because I'm going to spend it for what I consider a very positive thing.
But you could make a statement now that says, I do not want any white supremacists.
I don't. I think the philosophy of white supremacy is completely wrong. It's immoral.
So you do not want white supremacist groups supporting your campaign?
No, I don't, because it just muddies the water. So why would I want their money?
The point I'm making is not to blame Islam for 9/11. You have to blame only Al-Qaeda. That is a completely different story than all these innuendos that you're bringing up. I don't think that's part of the question. You have to narrow in because it has to do with our foreign policy, and that's what I'm dealing with, is the foreign policy. The foreign policy is crucial because that's why we have perpetual war. That's what and I think this is all connected. Not in a way that is conspiratorial, but in a way that is almost, people slip into this. It's real easy for people to get to hating Islam. But to me, that's equivalent to hating Christians because Timothy McVeigh was a Christian. And that I don't like. Nobody should like it. Nobody should like this being painted with a broad brush. It was done to the Jews before, and I don't like it. I like to stick to the facts. I like to talk about the foreign policy and how it's related. The sideshow, which is what I call this, is just there to stir things up and prevent us from dealing with the real problems, and that is our interventionist foreign policy that gets us too much involved overseas. Too many people die on both sides, and we're totally bankrupt.
Well, let me ask you about one of the issues that's come up during a lot of these contests all over the country, and that's the proposed Islamic Center and Mosque near Ground Zero. You came out very much in favor of that project, mainly along libertarian lines, saying that property rights and freedom of religion rights are a big part of this. And on your blog, you wrote that opposition to the mosque is all about hate and Islamophobia. What did you mean about that?
I think the people who are organizing that is one thing, but now that every candidate gets asked that question, I don't think you can put them all in that same category. But the organizers, the woman that put this out on her webpage and the people that picked up on it and preached this, yes, I think that they want to continue the hatred toward Islam rather than Al-Qaeda in order to justify their foreign policy of intervention and nation building and occupation. Because if you don't have an enemy that you despise, it's hard to get that support. But, I think it's turned into another issue as well. Even your station has reported on this Iman, and he seems like a pretty reasonable person. So if he's a reasonable person that worked for Bush as well as Obama, and he's making inroads because he's trying to bring Christians, Jews, and Muslims together. So if that would happen, there wouldn't be as much hatred over there. So I think maybe there are some now that are trying to, destroy him and his reputation, and I think that's going to backfire. It sounds to me, and I don't know the individual, the Iman, but it sounds to me like he might be a very reasonable person. So in order to perpetuate this foreign policy, not only do they have to perpetuate the hate toward Islam, they have to really destroy somebody who might be bringing the religious factions together.
Homosexuality. Should gays be allowed to marry?
Sure.
The state says we believe in this?
Sure, they can do whatever they want, and they can call it whatever they want, just so they don't expect to impose their relationship on somebody else. They can't make me personally accept what they do, but they can, gay couples can do whatever they want. Matter of fact, I'd like to see all governments out of the marriage question. I don't think it's a state function. I think it's a religious function. And there was a time when only churches dealt with, marriage, and they determined what it was. But 100 years or so ago, for health reasons, they claimed that the state would protect us if we knew more about our spouses, and we did health testing, and you had to get a license to get married.
The mob. All right, let's shift gears here to another topic, homosexuality. Do you believe it's a sin?
I'm not as judgmental about that because of probably because of my medical background. So I don't see it as in that simplistic terms. I think it's a complex issue to decide whether it's sin or other problems with the way people are born. It's to me too complex to be to give an answer as simple as that.
Do you believe that God says it's a sin?
Well, I believe a lot of people understand it that way, but I think everybody's God's child, too. So I have, trouble with that.
And why wouldn't you say this and say, no, homosexuals, adulterers, other unrepentant sinners in these kinds of categories are not decent people. They are people with flawed characters, and to the extent humanly possible, you would, as president, seek to bar people of poor and bad character from our military. Why wouldn't you say that?
Well, because I think for every homosexual problem that we have in the military, we have a heterosexual problem in the military.
I bar them both. Why wouldn't you say, yeah, we'll try to stop anyone from getting in the military who's a homosexual, who is an adulterer, who is a fornicator, and then other categories that indicate a character flaw. Why shouldn't we try to do that?
Looking at it in protecting the military, if they're going to perform their services and they're imperfect, because we're all imperfect and we all sin. So if the heterosexual or the homosexual sins, that to me is a category dealing with their own soul. for the practicality of running a military, I just as soon not know every serious thing that any heterosexual did or any homosexual did, and that those flaws have to do with all our flaws because of each and every one of us have those imperfections, and we all are sinners.
Well, we're all sinners, but some people do work harder at their sin than others. Some are repentant sinners and fighting their sin, and others, like unrepentant homosexuals who are parading down Main Street saying, you know, that they're proud that they're homosexuals. These are not people that are merely sinners. But how do we find out? If you do share my idea that, yes, of course, we should have people in the military of good moral character, how do we find out before they go in if they, in fact, are of good moral character? Better to find out before than after they're in, isn't it?
Well, I think it's virtually impossible if you're looking for perfection, and good moral character means that maybe you're looking for perfection. Then you have to define good moral character.
Sure.
And that means that people don't lie, cheat, steal, and murder, and they don't beat their wives, and they're taking care of their kids.
Okay.
And so if you can find people like that, then, you know, they may not be perfect, but they would be of moral character that could be in our military. Of course, what we're doing in our military now and with our foreign policy, we're desperate for people. We're putting anybody and everybody in. You know, age doesn't matter and moral character doesn't matter. So I think this is one of the reasons we end up with people in the military doing things that are rather despicable and has nothing to do with their sexual orientation.
I'm not a racist. As a matter of fact, Rosa Parks is one of my heroes. Martin Luther King is a hero because they practice the libertarian principle of civil disobedience, nonviolence. Libertarians are incapable of being a racist because racism is a collectivist idea. You see people in groups. A civil libertarian like myself see everybody as an important individual. It's not the color of their skin that is important, as Martin Luther King said. What is important is the character of the individual. You know what is really interesting, though, and this might be behind this, because I, as a Republican candidate, probably am getting the most number of black votes and black supporters, and now that has to be undermined. And I do this because I attack two wars that blacks are suffering from. One, the war overseas, and all wars, minorities suffer the most. So they join me in this position I have against the war in Iraq. And what about the war on drugs? What other candidate will stand up and fight in the can and say, I would pardon all blacks, all whites, everybody who are convicted for nonviolent drug acts and drug crimes? And this is where the real discrimination is. Let me finish this because I got to get my message back because you put the other message out. Now, if you want to look for discrimination, it's in the judicial system. 14% of the inner city blacks commit drug crime. 67% of blacks are in prison. That's discrimination. That's the judicial code that I am attacking, and that is not racism. What I defend is the principle of libertarianism, where we never see people who belong to a group, and every individual is defended and protected because they're important in the individual, not because of their color of skin, but of their character. So I am the anti-racist because I am the only candidate, Republican or Democrat, who would protect the minority against these vicious drug laws.
So I think maybe there are some now that are trying to, you know, destroy him and his reputation, and I think that's going to backfire. It sounds to me, and I don't know the individual, the imam, but it sounds to me like he might be a very reasonable person. So in order to perpetuate this foreign policy, not only do they have to perpetuate the hate toward Islam, they have to really destroy somebody who might be bringing the religious factions together.
Is the enemy of all racism, because racism is a collectivist idea. It's that you put people in categories. You say, well, blacks belong here and whites here and women here. And we don't see people in forms or gays. You don't have rights because you're gays or women or minority. You have rights because you're an individual. So we see people as strictly as individuals, and we get these individuals in a natural way. So it's exactly opposite of all collectivism, and it's absolutely anti-racism because we don't see it in those terms.